This episode is sponsored by W Wellness. I started working with W Wellness a few weeks ago, and I can't begin to tell you how much better I've been feeling. My energy's up, my joints are less achy, and the difference in my eye health has been phenomenal. I just feel like myself again. W Wellness is the UK's first expert-led wellness platform. I got paired with a real nutritionist who really listened and helped build a plan that worked for me. Everything's tailored, simple, and science-backed, and honestly, it's been the first thing that's actually stuck. I'm still on my 12-week journey and I'll keep sharing how it's going. But if you're feeling a bit off and you don't know where to start, this is it. Go to w-wellness.co.uk. It might just be the reset that your body has been asking for. Hi, welcome back. I'm Helen Marie, therapist, author, and your host of this podcast, I Don't Think We Talk Enough About. And today I'm delighted to welcome leading neuroscientist Dr. Caroline Leaf to talk about our minds and thoughts and just so much more. Caroline was one of the first in her field to study how the brain can change with directed mind input. Many of you might know that as neuroplasticity, and she has helped thousands and thousands of people to learn how to use their mind to detox and grow their brain to succeed in every area of their lives, including those with depression, anxiety, ADHD, autism, dementia, and mental illness. Her work is simply incredible. Caroline is also the author of 18 best-selling books and has a brand new book coming out very soon called Everything is Going to Be All Right. It's a guide to overcoming your toxic thoughts, your toxic behaviours, and the relationships in your life to be the person you were meant to be. We dive deep into this today. It really is life-changing. So let's get started. Let's meet Caroline. Dr. Caroline Leaf, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely to be with you, Helen.
Oh, it's just so wonderful to meet you. You are, as I said in my introduction, such a leading neuroscientist at the moment in the world, and you're bringing so much relatable content on your social media platform. I guide a lot of people to you, so it's just wonderful to have you sat in front of me.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Well, I love your page too. You have beautiful information and really, really helpful. So thank you. It's so good to meet you and so good to be on your show.
Oh, thank you so much. And Caroline, I wanted to talk to you today about your brand new book that's coming out. When is it coming out?
5th of August. So it's available for pre-order at the moment. It's actually there. We literally just got the printed copies 2 days ago. So oopsie, I've got paper inside here, but this is what it looks like.
Oh, wow. What a beautiful cover. So it's called, for the listeners, Help in a Hurry. And do you want to read the byline?
Yes, simple tips for finding peace when you're overwhelmed, anxious, or stressed. So I think very good for the current age.
It really is. And how, I mean, obviously I've been really lucky to have I've had an advanced copy of the book, and it was just wonderful to read. And I really noticed, and I know that you work very closely, you're one of the first to really look at the mind-body connection. I really noticed as I was reading and applying some of your incredible tools, I could really feel my nervous system come back to safety. I could really feel it go back into that. It feels easier. It's like a magical book to read. It's wonderful.
Oh, what a beautiful way to describe it. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And it makes me feel very happy because that really was the goal. It was to just help people get into that space. I mean, you know, as a psychotherapist as well, I practiced clinically for 25 years and I don't practice anymore. I do the research and these things now. But I always found there was almost like this book for me felt like a missing link, because when I was working with my patients, I would be telling them all these things and we'd work through the whole 63 days to change a habit and that kind of thing. And we can talk about those things. But I always found that I first had to help them to get into that pause, that gap, that out of that reactive mode. And, you know, I've never written a book about that. And this book is all about how do you create the gap? How do you create the pause that people talk about all over social media at the moment? But what do you do to not be reactive in the moment when we live in a world that is just it drives us to reactivity. So this has really been an answer to that. And we did surveys and we did I do clinical research, as you know. We also did surveys from our listeners. So all the things I cover in the book, Helen, are basically covered, are based on the research and the surveys, what people are battling with at the moment. And we ranked them in order. So the chapters run in order of what was the most common issue. And although all of them, I mean, and all of them, I think we can all relate to all of them. I can relate to every single one in there.
Yeah.
So that's just a little bit of why I wrote this book.
Thank you for sharing that. And actually, I didn't realize that you'd gone out to people to talk about what were the issues that they felt most pertinent. And because as I went down the list of chapters, it was so relatable to the community I have. It was so relevant. And you're so right about that pause that's talked about a lot. And so many people don't know how to catch it, do they?
No, I think that we've got it's a skill that we have the ability to develop as humans. It's part of our nature. It's natural. It's natural to respond and not react. But when we are immersed, we respond to our environment, as you know. And so whatever we are bombarded with is changing how the whole mind brain body connection works. And so we've become a much more reactive world, and it's global, and it's one of the sort of side effects of a multiplicity of things. And I believe probably the two main things are the biomedical model of mental health, which has taken away the humanity, I believe, a lot, and the our stories. And you talk so much about, finding yourself and understanding you and being comfortable being you. And then also obviously technology, which is a brilliant thing, but if not managed, you can get into that reactive space. So yes, I think it answers a need that we all know is there. I think every time if you read everything in the book, you know. It's not stuff that's new, but it's the way it's okay, this I need to do this. It's the science and it's the evidence and it's the how to of what we know we need to do as humans.
And that's the block, isn't it? It's the fact that so many of us do know what we need to do, but something stops us, doesn't it? There's a real resistance or something comes into play that we can't quite grip. Um, because I don't have a physical copy of the book, I wonder whether you would mind just reading out some of the chapter headings because they're brilliant,
Oh, absolutely.
just so people get a flavour of what the book is going to try and help people with who are reading.
Absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely. So the first chapter is Help in a Hurry. What is that? Help, what's going on in my head? Help, I'm under pressure. Help, my brain won't shut up. Help, I want to punch that person in the face. Help, the world seems so black and white. Help, I'm tired all the time. Help, my intrusive thoughts just won't quit. Help, I don't feel happy all the time. Help, I'm angry all the time. Help, my regrets are holding me back. Help, I don't know what the heck is happening. Help, my past is haunting me. Help, I'm a people pleaser. Help, my inner critic won't let up. Help, I'm self diagnosing again. Help, technology is everywhere. Help, everything is going wrong. And then my conclusion is it's okay to not be okay.
Oh, just brilliant. And even as you're reading that, I know that people listening will think, oh, I'm not alone in this.
Absolutely.
And so often we can feel alone in our struggles and our mental health, can't we?
Absolutely, Helen. I think that is so key because people, um, the biomedical model says that if you feel anything out of like any kind of depression or sadness or anxiety, or things that are all very normal, but the model or the zeitgeist or the messaging has been, well, you have a mental illness. There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your brain. And that immediately has sent, and this is a 50-year message, and it has immediately sent the message, because it's been going on for about 50 years, but this sends the message to people that there's something wrong with my brain and I don't have control. And as soon as you take control away from people, they feel hopeless and helpless. And there's that sense that rises, and then the world, that sense on top of the things that are happening in the world, make people feel less power than they actually have. And when we have this incredible mind, our brain isn't the same as the mind. And I know we're going to get into that. But for people to recognize and understand that the mind is not the brain, and that the biomedical model that says you are your brain and your brain controls everything and generates your thoughts, this is not accurate science. It's been disproved. It's not healthy science. But unfortunately, it's very dominant, and because it's very sort of a very convenient way of labeling, and initially giving someone a label may make them feel that, oh well, this gives reasons for why I'm like this. But you don't need a diagnosis to validate what you're going through. You and I both know that you don't need a diagnosis, yes, for health insurance claims, but you don't need a diagnosis for you to be validated, because every experience you're going through is already valid, and every emotion is valid. And that's, we've got to shift our perspective. And this model has created a worse stigma. So people are almost, they want to talk about it. There's more awareness, there is more talking, but at the same time, the talking is hiding behind labels, and the vulnerability is starting to come. But we see from the research that the stigma around mental health has got worse in the last 50 years, not better. And the statistics have got worse, as you and I both well know, and your audience and my audience know, the statistics of increased problems in mental health across the board have got worse. We know that Gen Z is worse than they were. We know that the U curve has changed in terms of younger people are now unhappier than older people. And so everything's back to front. So if the system of labeling and diagnosing of mental health disorders in the same way we do medical issues of the brain and body, then we should see an improvement. But things have got worse. And I think that makes people almost scared to talk about it, because people will think they're crazy or think there's something wrong with them. So there's, it's created such a mess. And it's also just not correct science. So it's been my mission to try and change this, to try and get people away from all this wrong languaging and almost over therapy talk and over self-diagnosing, and get into a place where let's be human again. Let's embrace and validate our narratives, and let's see that the responses to our narratives of our lives are very normal, and it's okay to not be okay. And when we start there, we get the power back, and then we can move forward more effectively, if that makes sense.
Oh, I loved that. I love the way you say that, getting that power back, because we need to have power, don't we? We need to have choice. We need to feel that we've got agency. We need to feel that we are more in control than our body or the system being in control.
Absolutely.
And I was interviewing a psychologist recently on my podcast about neurodivergency, and it was a fascinating conversation, because she was really moving away from labeling and talking much more about what is that person's experience, what is your experience, what happens to you in a day, how do you best cope with your symptoms or the way you present in a day. And actually it's such a much more nurturing way to be with someone, isn't it, than
Yeah.
a hard, I'm not saying take labels away, that's not what I'm saying, but the way that people can feel shame around labels, it's that giving people that care about what do you need, what works for you.
Oh, I so totally agree with you. It's, labels need to be shifted. If you think of a label locks you in, and the science shows that too. It locks you in, and it creates a network pattern that is, it's counter to resilience, and it definitely doesn't lead to self-nurturing, and it generally does not lead to self-nurturing from your environment and from people in your environment. It rather leads to people looking at you differently and feeling differently about you, even though they may say different words. But that kind of creates that, it creates this thing. And it's far best to do what you were describing, and what that psychologist that you interviewed was describing, is to realize that we are humans in life, and that every experience we have is contributing to how we are functioning, and that we are not showing up in a certain way because we have a mental disease, but we are showing up in a certain way because of something going on in our life and our environment. We are responding, we are having normal responses to adverse circumstances, which is a constant a statement a lot of people are now starting to make, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But but there's still, even though people will say what we're saying, there's still a predominant focus on a quick questionnaire, a quick label, and the implication is that, okay, well, the concept of diagnosis implies that there's an underlying neurobiological or biological cause. So in something like diabetes, that makes sense. We know it's related to the pancreas and insulin, and you can have directed treatment for that. But when it comes to mental health, you cannot use that model. because it's, first of all, it's not scientifically accurate. It's been disproved, even though 95% of the world's population think that that's accurate because of the way it's been presented by the unfortunately the psychiatric profession and the medical profession. And that's unfortunate because then people think, well, that's the accurate way. But the real science shows you that you're a human in life experiencing all these things. And if you understand how you process, and if you understand what your mind is doing to process, and the impact on your brain and the body, and the role of the mind, the role of the brain, the role of the body, the role of the interaction, the role of the environment, and your role as a human, that changes your whole perspective and gives you that power back. It doesn't mean you're going to walk around like a happy avatar. It means that you're going to be able to embrace the challenges of life. As I said in my last chapter, it's okay to not be okay. This is very normal. The research actually shows that 95% of the average day of an average human is spent in a very neutral state, not in this happiness, positive psychology state, not constantly seeking after happiness. In fact, seeking after happiness, which I also discuss in one of the chapters, will increase depression. It will actually increase depressive symptoms. So we should rather look at labels as being a way of describing our behaviors, our emotions. So four things. Look at a label as a description, not as an it, like diabetes or cardiovascular disease or something. Look at a label as being a description of a combination of your emotions, your behaviors, where you are feeling those emotions in your body, and how this is affecting your perspective or your attitude. Those four categories encompass literally all the ways we can show up as a human in any one moment of any one day. And if we can stand back and observe that, and you do that, by the way, with your mind, you can then say, okay, this is how I'm showing up. This is not me. This is not a fixed it. This is not a brain disease. This is a response to what's going on in my life currently. And what am I going to do about it? And that shifts one's perspective and looks at it differently. So that's the overarching kind of focus of the work I've done for nearly 40 years now, and researched how does that process work? How does how do our stories of our life become part of our mind, brain, body network, our psychoneurobiology, and how do they then influence how we show up? And then how can we take how we show up, and how can we reverse engineer that? We can't get rid of our stories, but we can change what they look like inside of our networks. And why do we need to change our mind, brain, body networks or our psychoneurobiology? We need to change them because those networks are what drive us every day. So if we don't like how we're showing up every day, we need to be able to rewire those networks. And what I try to do is empower people to understand how they show up and rewire the networks. And this is essentially what you're doing as a psychotherapist through your private practice and through your social media page, where you're encouraging people to reconceptualize things,
Yeah.
which is look at things differently, look at them from another perspective, do a mind shift. We're using words for the same concept, which is basically reconceptualizing. And your work is empowering people to do that. What I'm doing as a neuroscientist, and I'm a clinical and research neuroscientist, I'm not a tradition. My field of expertise is psychoneurobiology, mind brain body connection, and how that influences how we communicate and show up. And so my work has been to try and create the systems and the formulas for how we can do that, and to help people understand mind management. So in the context of all of that big picture, this book is, and I've written this is my 19th book.
Incredible.
My other books are, my most recent book is how to cleaning up your mental mess, and how to help your child clean up their mental mess. So mental mess meaning, so my two recent books that go really well with this, and I have an app called the Neurocycle.
I saw that. It's fantastic.
Thank you. It's a set of helping you understand these principles that we don't have hours to talk about, but that in the podcast obviously as well, help you to, get into that understanding of what is my mind, what is my brain, what is my body, how do I find these four signals of how I'm showing up, how do I reverse engineer those, how do I can't change my story, but how do I change what the network looks like, so therefore I can change how what's happened to me and what's happening to me play out into my future. How can I accept the uncertainty? How can I deal with live with it's okay to not be okay? How can I have more wisdom in judging all the messages coming at me? So that's the kind of context of the work. This book is before I do that big work, the work of psychotherapy, the work of self empowerment, and I want to quickly stress. I'm such a believer in people still going for therapy, but not everyone can afford therapy,
Yeah.
and not everyone can be with their therapist 24/7. That's illogical. We can't expect that. So we have to know how to manage ourselves, and that's what I bring to the table. I bring to the table the ability for you to learn to be empowered to manage yourself, manage your mind, and then know what you it helps you get so much more out of a therapy session because you can then identify those areas of weakness. And if you can't get to a therapist and you don't have the money, you have at least got these podcasts and your page and my page and tools like my app and my book and your book, to be able to, self-empower and almost literally give yourself therapy and just know how to have discussions with loved ones and close friends and so on. So, where this book fills in the gap, Help in a Hurry, is where do I start? What about that moment of activation when someone has just said something to me that's triggered me to the point where I catch myself people pleasing or I catch myself falling into a complete state of panic and I'm going to fall into a regret cycle, or those intrusive thoughts have got me locked into a mode that I can't function, all those kinds of things. Those 18 chapters that I spoke about, those 15, which are sort of cover 15 main areas, those are pretty universal, as I mentioned. Everyone battles with them, but it's what do I do in the first 63 seconds? So, what I've shown from my scientific research.
Yeah, go on. I say, why 63?
Yes, okay. So, sorry, I was speaking for so long there. So,
No,
yes.
no, I'm absorbed. It's brilliant.
All right. So, the four areas of how we show up moment by moment every day is in your emotions. So, depression, anxiety, guilt, frustration, worry, fear, all of those are emotional data. They're not bad. No emotion is bad. Okay. Every emotion is data. So even if you're feeling jealousy, where people would think, oh, jealousy is bad, depression's bad. No, they're not bad. They are information. And the only time that they throw you into a toxic state is if you try and suppress them or if you try and think they're part of a disease, they're a symptom of a disease. And that's not your fault. You've been told that. Or if you feel if you don't manage them, then you can spiral, and so they can shift from being useful data into like almost like captive captors that are capturing captor capturing you. So you have the control to control that shift. So emotions are the first one. Second one is where do you feel those emotions in your body? Because memory, which are memories which are captured in grouped into thoughts are not in your brain only, they are in your entire body. The brain has had way more attention. It's good it's got attention, but there's more allocated to the brain. The brain doesn't do as much as what people are told it does. Okay, it's not your center of memory. People have these endless research showing how a damaged brain, people with hardly any brain, people with split brains function at very high levels. And that's because the mind is not the brain. The mind's not in the brain. So the second thing is we need to focus on on our bodies because there's so much emphasis at the moment on somatic work, on body work, PTSD work. And the reason is because memory is even in your fingertips. Just to be facetious, this will show a silly little example. Memory is out your entire body. You have 37 to 100 trillion cells in your brain and your body collectively. And this conversation is building into 37 to 100 trillion cells. That's how powerful this is. And you can direct that. And that is neuroplasticity, the fact that every experience is building into and changing the structure of the brain and the body. Okay, so the second one is, so first one is emotional warning signals. And the second one is behavioral warning signals. Sorry, body sensation. I apologize. Bodily signals or bodily sensation, where we feel it in our body. Third one is behaviors. Okay, so that's even including things like addiction, which is not a disease, it's a behavior that has become toxic. And then the final one is perception, your perspective warning signals. So that's your attitude, perspective. So emotions, bodily sensations, behaviors, and perspectives, very clearly laid out in all my books and in the app. And the app is like therapy, like me giving you therapy, quite literally. So if we can then focus on those signals are attached to the thought. What is a thought? A thought is an encapsulation of memories. So a thought with its memories are an experience. Like this podcast is now an experience, and every word we're saying are the memories of the thought, the details of the experience. So this conversation, lots of words. This is an experience with details. It is built into the mind brain body network as a thought made of memory. Okay, so everything we go through, every experience is a lot of thoughts made up of memories. You can even think of them like rain clouds made up of lots of droplets of water. And it's a nice analogy because a thought first builds like that. But before I jump ahead, you asked about the four signals. So I'll say them again: emotions, bodily sensations, behaviors, and perspectives. And then maybe we can, if you want, we can dive into thoughts and memories and
Yeah, no, I would love to. I'd love to, because you've said it a few times in the podcast, and I think it would be really helpful for the listeners, is around the differentiation between mind and brain.
Absolutely. So, in our current dialogue, not mine, but the current sort of biomedical model, there's been a lot of emphasis on mind and brain being the same thing. So, it's basically a philosophy that has penetrated into science, and then into medical jargon or medical languaging, and then into the public arena. And what people think is when they say, "Oh, it's in my head," they'll do this with their hand, and immediately it's the thing of brain, mind, head, all the same thing. But they're actually not the same thing. That philosophy says your brain generates you. It generates your thoughts. It generates your mind. Mind is what we call what this theory says is it's an epiphenomenon or even a mistake. It's the kind of like side effect of the action of the chemicals and neurons and electromagnetics of the brain. That's what that model says. Now, it has actually never been proven. It's a philosophy that has just dominated scientific thought and is used as a model. But it's a model that has actually never been proven, has actually been disproven. There's more evidence, very, very, very solid evidence showing that the mind is separate from the brain, and there's different, and I'm not going to go into all the philosophical stands, but there's different things like dualism and blah, 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 which people don't, I've written about it in books, but the essential basic idea is mind is separate from the brain and from the body, but the three work together as a unit. So the brain and the body are your physical, they're what you can see and touch, and through those we can then we have our nervous system and everything in the brain and the body. And then your mind is separate but uses the brain and the body. So it's almost like the brain and the body are hosts of the mind. And this statistic I'm going to share will probably be a little mind-blowing for people, but your mind is 99% of who you are, and your body's only around 1%, your brain and body are only around 1% of who you are. Now, that doesn't mean that the brain and body are negligible. Absolutely not. The brain, I've been in the field 40 years, and the advances in neuroscience are phenomenal. We're learning more and more about the functioning of the brain, but we've got to be careful that we don't get caught up in the excitement of the brain, which we have. And we've become a neurocentric society, which has become a brain dominant society. So it's in my brain. But what they have shown conclusively is that the brain is only when you're alive does the brain work. Number one, when you're dead, the brain doesn't. It disintegrates. Everything in your body disintegrates. Within 10 to 20 seconds of your heart stopping, your brain's flatlined and everything is disintegrating. So the difference between a dead person and an alive person is the aliveness. So your mind is actually your aliveness, this ability to animate the brain and the body.
This episode is sponsored by Simple Practice. The work you do holds so much heart, and managing a practice shouldn't take you away from that. If the behind-the-scenes tasks ever feel heavy, things like scheduling, documentation, billing, Simple Practice is here to help lighten that load. Simple Practice is an all-in-one EHR designed with care to support your practice, your time, and your clients. Everything you need: secure notes, telehealth, calendar management, even insurance and billing. It all lives in one place, working together to bring more ease to your day. Because when the admin side feels simpler, there's more space for the work that truly matters, for presence, connection, and care. For new customers, you can get an exclusive promotion by going to simplepractice.com/Helen Marie and get a 7-day free trial, then 70% off for 4 months. Please see show notes for more details.
A Aristotle spoke about this. That's an ancient philosopher. Even back to Thomas Aquinas spoke about the fact that it is our mind that animates the brain and the body. So the brain and the body are hosts to the mind. So the mind, we use that word. I've chosen to use the word mind. A lot of people will talk about soul, spirit, consciousness. Those are the three most common words for this mind thing, this thing that's not brain and body: consciousness, soul, and spirit. And so I can define, that for you with nice sciencey terms that can help people understand. So brain and body, 1% physical, and they are hosts to the brain and the mind. They hold the nervous system, the physical nervous system, and so the mind uses the nervous system, which animates the nervous system, which then makes the brain and the body work, which enables me to lift my hands and have this conversation with you and breathe, and my heart's pumping and my brain is working because of my mind. So my mind is driving my neurophysiology, all those things that make me work as a human, and also driving my psychology. So my ability to feel, respond, love, hate, experience the sunset, be intelligent, have wisdom, all that stuff, all that abstract reasoning, etc., that is mind. Now, all the research that's been done on the brain, we see for absolute 100% certainty that when a person's alive, and you use things like QEEGs or MRI, different technology to look inside the brain, we can see that, like if you stimulate certain parts of the brain with open brain surgery, you'll have movement, you'll have, you get sort of a reflex happening, or you'll get maybe an emotion being triggered, but in a very factual way. So it's not that the brain is producing those, it's that when you're alive, certain parts of the brain will respond. So we call them sort of borderline areas of the brain will respond to very basic things, basic sensations: sight, smell, taste, touch. And basic factual emotion, like a happy, sad, angry, that kind of thing. But abstract thought, reasoning, executive function, that has never ever been stimulated in a human brain. Roger Penfield, he wasn't actually Sir, although he should have, won the Nobel Prize for his work in epilepsy many years ago, and he did more than 1 million stimulations of the brain in open brain surgery. And what he showed was that initially he was a materialist. He believed that the brain was everything, that the mind didn't, this was this abstract thing that didn't count. And he changed, and he showed, without going into too much history, but he actually did some of the most accurate neuroscience ever. And he showed with over 1 million stimulations that the brain cannot do abstract thoughts. Something else is doing the reasoning, the executive functioning, our ability to have this conversation. That's coming from a deeper level. It's coming from something else, and it's using the brain so that you and I can actually communicate and connect, and your viewers and listeners can communicate and connect. So in the mind, so you want to ask anything about that before I explain the levels
No,
of...
that's fantastic. And I think it's so useful, Caroline, because we so often just think of it as being brain and body. And I love the way you've brought the mind in there. So many people connect the mind and the brain as the same thing.
Exactly.
And it's so clearly not. And you said something beautiful in your book. And I'm thinking here that this is the mind and the body driving this, that you said, if our brain can change in one direction, it can heal in another.
Absolutely.
So what we're talking about here is the mind and the body driving that change in the brain, isn't it?
The mind changing the brain and the body. So it's the
And the
mind
body.
does work, and then the brain and the body simply do what the mind tells it to do. So the brain doesn't generate, the brain doesn't think, the body doesn't generate, the body doesn't think. The brain and the body function with what we would call a pre-consciousness. So it's not thinking, it's responding. It's beautifully structured machine to respond. And so, but it's got to respond to something. Something's driving it, and that's you. Your mind is you. That's really what
I
your mind
love that.
is.
Yeah.
Your mind is you. It's your aliveness. It's you. It's the beautiful you-ness. And you're very much into helping people understand the importance of you. And so then if you think of mind, if you think of those words, soul, spirit, consciousness, where does this all fit in? Because there's so much about consciousness going around. And I'm so glad, like Sir Roger Penfield in the UK, Penrose, not Penfield, Sir Roger Penrose, Stuart Hamerhoff in the United States, they've created a theory called the Orchard theory without going into too much science. The point is that there are scientists, Nobel Prize winning scientists, and years of research that are saying, hey guys, the brain is not it. The brain and body are run by something else. And that something else is not just your consciousness either. That's one level. Consciousness, us being conscious now to have this conversation, is one level. There are more levels, and the other levels are the subconscious, which everyone's heard about, and then there's a level which I can guarantee most people haven't heard about, and that's called the non-conscious, NON. Now, what people do is they talk about, and psychological and therapy talk and so on, they talk about unconscious, the unconscious mind, where the programs run. That's incorrect. The unconscious is not a mind state, it's a brain state. So it's a physical state that you go into when you're asleep or under anesthesia or knocked out from something. You fell and injured your, fell over and got knocked out or something like that. So unconscious is a brain state. Non-conscious is a level of mind. Subconscious is a level of mind. Consciousness is a level of mind. For those that are into more spiritual stuff, you could see the consciousness as being your soul level, and you could say that the subconscious and the non-conscious are your spirit level. So I hope that helps people. So it's
Yeah, of course.
three levels: non-conscious, subconscious, conscious. And conscious or consciousness is your soul, and then your non-conscious is more your spirit level, your subconscious more your spirit level, unconscious a brain state. Brain 1%, mind 99%.
Yes,
So that
fascinating.
non-conscious, it is fascinating. So I've spent 40 years researching this, and there's giants that came before me, and the science is not spoken about enough, which is why I'm pushing it. Because when people grab the non-conscious, you will see a difference in your patients in therapy when they get, because you, with this as a psychotherapist, you are tapping in, because I was trained in all that as well. So you are tapping into the non-conscious wise level. So what is that level? I'm going to give you. Can I give you? Is there time for me to give you a quick analogy, and then we can
Yes,
talk about?
please.
I know you wanted to ask me some practical things. Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 'Cause I think there's so much in the book that people can gain from. I'd love to talk to you about some of it as well. But yeah, go on, of course.
I'll do this in under 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and then we can dive into the book. Okay, so essentially your non-conscious operates 24/7. That's your NON. That's the biggest part, your spirit level. It operates 24/7. It's beyond space and time, which means it's not restricted to the here and now. So it's beyond space and time. It's so fast. It operates at 400 billion actions per second. It absorbs your entire environment. It's your intelligence, your wisdom. It is your best friend. Takes in everything around you all the time, sorts it out, neutralizes and gets rid of most of it. But what it doesn't get rid of is the stuff that you've chosen with your conscious mind to focus on. So when there's certain patterns in our life, certain traumas that happen to us, or certain habits that we have built, and we don't deal with those, or we've suppressed things, those suppression means you've taken it from a conscious level, pushed it through the subconscious and into the non-conscious. Everything goes through that route, but when we everything goes through, everything comes in through the non-conscious, and then it goes two ways. Let me not confuse you. Everything goes in the non-conscious absorbs everything. Then the non-conscious does all this work of selecting and fixing and whatever, and then it finds those areas that are the most disruptive in your life currently. So maybe there's a regret cycle or intrusive thoughts, because I know you wanted to talk about intrusive thoughts. So let me use that example.
Yeah, use that for the intrusive thoughts. That'd be great.
Okay. Then again, I'll give you a technique as well
Yeah,
to deal with.
thank you. Yes.
And we can even talk about regret cycle, whatever. Okay,
Yes.
so let's say now as you wake up today, your non-conscious mind starts absorbing everything around you, which includes you reading your emails, your texts, conversations with your family, whatever it is you do to get ready in the morning, the news. Your non-conscious mind first absorbs it at 400 billion actions per second, and then it sends through messages to this. It slows it down because your conscious mind can only handle 2 to 3 words at a moment, whereas your non-conscious mind can handle an infinite number of words in any one moment, and that's bits of information. And so if you as a human, if your conscious mind and brain had to absorb all of that, we would explode. Physically, our brain would be in, our whole body would be shattered. We couldn't function. So it has to be, all the stimulation is narrowed down and pushed through the subconscious, which is like a filtering area, and it slows it right down to around about 4 to 7 thoughts in a moment, which is about 15 to 20 words. And then slowly the subconscious sends you messages every sort of 7 to 10 seconds, and 2 to 3 words every 10 seconds. Now, all that, people think, well, all these numbers. The point is, it goes from very fast, slows down. And so by the time your conscious mind is aware, your non-conscious mind and subconscious mind have been working. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So you're consciously understanding what as I've just said, your non-conscious already understood it all way before you, and processed and got up the relevant memories that you need to process what I'm saying. All of that was collected before you were even conscious of my next word and my
God.
next 2 to 3 words. So that's going on all the time. Now, with mind management and self-regulation, which is what I teach in this book and in all my work and in my podcasts and my therapy, everything is coaching, everything is to help you to tune into the non-conscious, to help your conscious mind, which is a very focused part of you, which has what we call veto power. Veto power meaning, wow, that thought's just come up. And this, it's been triggered by this incoming email, conversation, text, whatever. I have veto power. I can manage, me with my brilliant mind can manage my reaction, that my conscious mind. So I can consciously talk to that's what self-talk is. It's your conscious mind or consciousness listening to the message coming via the subconscious from the non-conscious. So if you think of your conscious mind like a toddler, and toddlers zoom all over the place, they're hungry for knowledge, they find life so exciting, they're up 1 minute, down the next. That's our conscious mind, focused, thinking, feeling, choosing, but it needs a bit of guidance. So it's got a parent. Now think of a toddler without a parent, you've got a problem. A toddler without a parent is going to be chaos. So our consciousness has a toddler part and a parent part. And what we need to, what happens is the conversation comes in, it gets processed, all this fast stuff, and by the time it gets to the consciousness, your non-conscious is hoping, you with your wisdom are hoping that you with your consciousness will operate in a wise level. In other words, that your toddler will listen to the parent. Addictive patterns, and I'm going to give you the extreme. You've ignored the parent and you're operating just in the toddler mind. And that's very chaotic. It sends a chaotic energy into the brain and the body, and that makes you feel terrible. So you look for something to numb. Substances, alcohol, sex, not eating too much. All of those are external things that you're doing to suppress the chaos in your conscious toddler mind. So as you go into therapy, when they go into therapy with you, you are teaching your clients, your patients, how to get the consciousness or the conscious toddler part of the mind to listen to the parent part of the mind. Now, the minute that balance happens, doors open, and you now start listening to the non-conscious via the subconscious. Now you've accessed wisdom, because not only does the non-conscious include wisdom, intuition, insight, creativity, imagination, reasoning, problem solving, it finds and has all the solutions. So everything you need is inside of you. And you've told this to your patients, I'm sure, 1,000 times. It's all in you. So if you can get the toddler to listen to the parent, you get access to the non-conscious. That means you're opening the door to wisdom, and the non-conscious will put into has already put into the subconscious not only the problem, but also the solution.
Yeah, it's there.
It's there. So when you're in therapy or when you're using the systems I've developed called the neurocycle, which is a formula that you literally are using in therapy. I mean, I've just formalized this thing. When people do this all the time when they're in their wise mind, I've just formalized it, turned it into a process that people can consciously train themselves to do all the time. So mind management is self-regulation using the formula of the neurocycle, which is how we can control these signals and do all this rewiring and all that stuff. It's how you do it. It's the how to, the neurocycle formula. Okay. And so essentially you are opening that whole process up. So now let's translate this into intrusive thoughts, 63 seconds and 63 days. 63 days is the time it takes to rewire a psychoneurobiological network. So if I am constantly being dominated by intrusive thoughts and I live my life dominated by intrusive thoughts, because it's basically become a habit. So whatever thought pops up, I don't regulate. I get into my toddler mind that sends chaos into my brain, because whatever is everything goes in the mind first. And the mind is an energy field, and it forms these little clouds of thoughts, which are made up of memories like the raindrops. So think of all around you and through you, little clouds of energy, which is every experience you have. Rain clouds are those intrusive thoughts that are driving you crazy, or the regret cycles, or the I'm going to punch that person in the face, or that trauma, whatever. Those are rain clouds of different sizes. That energy, it first goes in that part. Everything, life first goes into this energy area, this mind area, non-conscious, conscious, all this subconscious thing. Then it gets copied and put into the brain. And as soon as that energy hits the brain, you have quantum reactions, you have electromagnetic reactions, you have neurochemical reactions, and you have proteins forming and genetic reactions, which form proteins throughout the brain and the body, and a network is formed. This is all happening at 400 billion actions per second and faster. It's happening right now as we're speaking. You make 800,000 to a million new cells every second. Now you can control that. So you can direct that. That's neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is taking what the mind has just processed into and putting it as a copy into the brain and the body. In the brain, it builds like a tree. Here's a little plant for those of you that are listening. I'm holding up a little tree-like structure, which is what a thought with all its memories, it looks like in the brain. And in the body, it looks like a little hedge, like a little trimmed garden hedge. So you'll build the thought into the brain as a tree-like structure, cloud in the mind, puts it in the brain, becomes a tree in the brain, and in every cell of the body, that thought with its memories becomes like a little hedge. I know it's a lot to comprehend, but just think of clouds, trees, and hedges, and they're all connected with an invisible thread or a visible thread, whatever you want to call it, and that's the network. So when we talk about rewiring networks, when we talk about rewiring neural pathways, that's what we're talking about. Clouds, trees, and hedges. And what you can do as a human is you can identify those clouds, trees, and hedges. How? Via those signals. The signals, as soon as you focus on the 4 signals, the emotions, behaviors, bodily sensations, and perspectives, you will activate that network, which is the clouds, trees, and hedges. And as soon as you activate it, it becomes malleable, which means changeable. And what you can learn to do as a human is redirect that. So now I'm going to hold up a toxic looking tree. It's all wiry. So now this will represent our intrusive thought. So now you wake up in the morning, you grab your phone, you see a text, boom, intrusive thought comes up because that triggers something. So you're reading your text, you're consciously aware, but your non-conscious already read that text, already sussed out the whole environment, already found this area in your brain that is hasn't been dealt with. And it said, okay, Caroline, Helen, you need to deal with this. So I'm going to put it in the subconscious because this keeps coming up as an intrusive thought. And then as you consciously now, this has all happened already. Now you consciously read the text and process it, boom, signals. I feel like or let's say frustration or anxiety, or your body responds. Or maybe my neck, I always react with my neck. My neck just goes into like spasms. Then I always know that I'm in tension. Whatever, you'll find your little thing. So that's bodily sensation. So let's say it's frustration, tension in the neck for the body, behavioral, like about to send back an angry text, or it could be a people pleasing, or it could be self-critical talk, whatever. And then perspective, oh no, I'm just useless, or something like that. So there are my 4 signals. So in 60 seconds, consciously, I can use my veto power. You know, when you veto, that means you override something. A president has veto power. Every human has veto power. So now, with this book, what you can do, and this is what I did with my patients, and before you dive into saying, oh God, this is a pattern in my life, I keep on being triggered by these things, and it creates these intrusive thoughts. My day is just peppered with one intrusive thought after another. I'm just constantly triggered. That is a pattern. We know that. Okay, so we know that this is a pattern. You do this. This is your life. 80% of your day or whatever is filled with this. If you're not sure if it is a pattern, I've even given you tables in the book where you can track yourself over a few days, and you can see, is this a pattern? What's the who, what, when, what does the pattern look like? So you can find if it is a pattern, get details on the pattern, and then you would go into a 63-day process where you would do the neurocycle, which is 5 steps each day for around 15 minutes, longer if you want to, but I'd recommend not longer than 30 minutes. And why 63 days? Because it doesn't take 21 days to rewire a psychoneurobiological network. These clouds, trees, and hedges, they're complex structures. They do not take 5 minutes to rewire, nor do they take 21. A lot of work is done in 21. A lot of deconstruction and reconstruction is done. But to stabilize that into a complete sustainable change requires another 42 days minimum. If we're talking about traumas, like, for example, rape or abuse or something like that, you need multiple cycles. But before you can dive into that, you're triggered. What do you do now? I've just woken up. So what we see from the science is that the first 60 to 63 seconds of consciously becoming aware of information, we have, based on all that science I gave you earlier on, we have ability to veto our reaction. Why? If I don't veto my reaction, then I'm going to take all this chaos that's been stimulated through the force, the four signals are telling us about the chaos. I'm pulling up this thought, and I'm either going to pay attention to those signals and this thought that it's generating, and I'm going to run with it, in which case I drive neuroplasticity, which happens regardless. You're always changing. Your mind, brain, body is always changing from every stimulation. So if it's uncontrolled, it's changing in the wrong direction. So I'm now going to go and still change, but in the wrong direction. I'm going to make this stronger. So now it goes back stronger. I don't control it. It's just got bigger. So now that intrusive thoughts got me into maybe a regret cycle where I'm thinking, or terrible self-critical talk. Intrusive thoughts tend to lead to a lot of self-critical attack on ourselves and lack of compassion, whatever it may be. So in 60 seconds, I can redirect that. Now, whatever triggered me, or whatever thought, maybe I didn't even read a text. Maybe it was just I woke up and I thought of something. So it was an internal thought that basically activated. The intrusive thought came up and it's gripped me. And I haven't even read anything yet. I've just opened my eyes. So that 60 seconds is where I can change that thought. It doesn't mean that the thought won't go to the clouds and the network and that network. That's not going to be eliminated in 60 seconds. That takes 63 days to redesign. Okay. It's going to take, but you've got to get control in the moment so you can at least find the pattern, so you can at least get through the rest of the day. So the first thing I have to do is validate, honor, acknowledge. So important. But so I step into almost like being my own therapist, and I say, oh, wow, I've just had this intrusive thought that has made me feel these emotions, this bodily sensation, this perspective, and I want to do this behavior. I honor that. This is valid. This is something that's really worrying me. So you talk to yourself in this really kind, compassionate way. You don't shove it down. Oh, I'm bad. I'm this. No, honor it. This is not you. This is something that's very relevant in your life, and it needs acknowledgement and it needs honoring. The most amazing thing happens when you do that. You change your entire psychoneurobiology. You shift from being controlled to controlling. You are now in the driver's seat. You are now honoring something that's very real to you. And you're telling yourself, this is not you. It's okay. This is happening because of. You've got this intrusive thought because of something. Don't worry. We're going to go on a journey together. We are going to find it. That kind of wording, gentle, compassionate, etc. Then as you do that, I mean, that can take you to validate that 10 seconds, 15, 20 seconds at the most. With a bit of practice, you can do that in 10 to 20 seconds easily. Then you go into a process of that little exercise can generate a change in your breathing, a change in your physiology. And we feel that, like I'll feel it in my tightened neck. Very often you'll feel it in your breathing. Your breathing goes shallow. So those are very often reactions. Our breathing goes very shallow. Now, oxygen not only is what we need to breathe, but oxygen is a molecule. It carries energy. What is the energy it carries? Your mindset, your thought. So what is going through your consciousness, your conscious mind, stuck in the toddler state, that energy is what's attaching itself to the oxygen, which is why you do this or that kind of thing. It's because of, so now we notice our breathing and think, oh, flip, okay, let's not send these messages. My poor pre-consciousness in my body thinks I'm in a state of flight, fright, danger, threat, blah, blah, blah. So now, okay, so there's a lot of mental work going on here. You can't just meditate it away. You have to do this mental with it. So then the next little 10-second thing is I can validate. Then the next thing is notice my breathing. And in noticing my breathing, do something like a trigger breathing exercise, which will calm down that neurophysiology. And that's take a deep, deep breath. And when you can't take any more, take another sip. And that immediately, if you just do it while I'm talking, you will feel how it changes. So something like that. And then you'll see, there's 100 different ways you can do these things. Then
fabulous.
You would do a mind shift. So there's 3 basic principles happening here. It's the validation through those acknowledgement of the 4 signals. It's then noticing how you are breathing and physically functioning and changing that through a breathing exercise or one of these visualization or little techniques like visualizing that thought as an ant and it's tiny and you can just, wash it away or a speck of dirt, whatever. There's a lot of very simple things you can do. And then the third part is a mind shift, which is a reconceptualization, which is the wording of, okay, this is throwing you off. There's a problem here. It's okay. I validate that. There's some details in here that are very relevant. You know what? Let's pay attention to this. But for now, you've got to get through the day. So this is, you can hear what I'm saying? I'm reconceptualizing. I'm acknowledging. I'm saying it's okay. We're going to work on this. But for now, let's put this aside. And what can we do to get through the rest of the day? That's a basic example of how to deal with an intrusive thought. You see, an intrusive thought, they are your new best friends, along with your non-conscious, because the non-conscious is your best friend, and intrusive thoughts are as well, because the non-conscious takes the intrusive thoughts and puts them into your mind for a reason, your consciousness for a reason, for you to see them as data. They provide information. They are your friend, because if you look them in the face, you will get control over them. You will find all the details. You will track the source. You can't change what the source was, but being aware of the source, you can then reconstruct. So never run from an intrusive thought. Embrace, process, and reconceptualize. And then the book is filled with like regret cycles. I can say in 1 minute, regret cycles. The if only, could have, would have, should have. Regret cycles keep us completely stuck, because people will think, if I did that, then this good thing would have happened. That's called a upward counterfactual. If I did this, then this bad thing would have happened. A downward counterfactual. So you take the fact and you make the fact into you take the fact, you distort the fact, and you create a story that's not factual, that makes you think, oh, this is going to be so much better. If I did that, if I said that, if I got there in time, that wouldn't have happened. But the fact is, that's a counterfactual, because it never happened, it never will. But you can get so caught up in your stories that you create drama in your life, and etc. In 60 seconds, you can catch that, honor it, validate the counterfactual, validate the regret, notice the signals, get the breathing visualization part, do a mind shift, and then take time to find a pattern, and then commit to 63 days. So this book is all about the 63 seconds.
It is about the 63 seconds, isn't it? Catching
It
yourself.
is. And there's so much science behind that 63 seconds.
I'm so sad you've got to go.
Me too. I'm enjoying this.
I could listen to you, and I've got so many more questions I would love to have asked, but your mind
We
is
can do this again. We can do this again.
lovely. But I'm in awe of your mind. It's absolutely beautiful to have witnessed what you shared today. It's just stunning, and I know that people listening they'll be learning so much more. And what I would say to people is to really look at your Instagram, your brilliant website, and your app, because it's fantastic and it helps with all of this, doesn't it?
It all works together.
It all works together. And for people not to feel alone in those 63 days, they've got support with it. So that's just fantastic. So Caroline, thank you so, so much. It was honestly a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. And a pleasure to meet you as well. And it's been wonderful. And I hope we connect again. I'd love to have you on my show sometime. I'm sure we can get together in the future.
Yeah, thank you so, so much. And
sorry, I have to run.
I know you do. Enjoy your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you. Bye.
And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much if you could follow the show, leave a quick rating, and maybe even a review to let others know what you think and whether they may enjoy the conversation too. Your support genuinely means so much. Thank you. Enjoy your day.